I'm going to talk about the influence of sharing knowledge on perception. First, I'm going to talk about George Bell. He is an 81-year-old Australian cardinal, and in 1996 he sexually abused two 13-year-old boys. After Mass, he accused the boys of drinking the ceremonial wine, and as a punishment, he forced the boys into indecent acts. Several decades later, in June 2017, he was finally charged for the crimes in 1996, and a few months later, he was also charged for a crime from another incident in the 1970s. An Australian judge banned the first case from being publicly covered by the news until the second trial took place. He did this so that the trial wouldn't be influenced by what was said in the news. This ban was placed first on Australia, but then it was later extended to international media. News companies would publish blank pages because of the ban, like the one shown in the photograph from the Herald Sun, which led to a lot of suspicion from the public. From this situation, several knowledge concepts were extracted. The first was the sharing of knowledge, because the judge is deciding whether information can be shared. He can control what news networks are showing their viewers, and those viewers could possibly become jurors for the second trial. Then we also have incomplete knowledge. The information that would have been shared by the news is seen as incomplete when it's compared to the evidence and knowledge that is going to be present in trial. The next concept was extracted on the idea that knowledge has the ability to influence everything around us. The reason the judge banned media from covering the case was because he felt that the news could influence the results from the trial. Jurors for trials are supposed to be impartial, and they should only be exposed to evidence presented during trial, not on rumors or incomplete evidence being showed in the news. For this situation, it was also important to address how perception was involved. The judge feared that the information given to the future jurors by the media would influence perceptions that jurors could develop from the trial. For example, the jurors would perceive the evidence in the trial differently if they were exposed to media that declared the cardinal as guilty or as innocent. All of these concepts were used together to create a knowledge question that addressed the relation between knowledge, influence, and perception. The knowledge question created was, how can our perception of a situation be influenced by the sharing of incomplete knowledge? To answer this question, two perspectives are going to be analyzed more in depth. The first perspective deals with Gestalt's principle of visual perception. These principles explain how the human brain is by default creating structure and order when there is only disorder. Gestalt created 7 of these principles. However, only the principle of closure is going to be explored. Closure states that when our brain is presented with an image that is not complete or it's distorted, it would automatically fill in the areas which are missing in order to create a pattern which we recognize. If the sharing of knowledge is not complete, then it's up to each individual to find closure, even if the perception they have now created is not accurate to reality, or it has even been damaged. The reason why this can be damaging is because the brain creates assumptions based on the information it has, not on the complete picture. The principle of closure in theory relates directly on how perception is affected by incomplete knowledge. However, this principle is applied on a visual level, meaning in terms of knowledge and how it can be shared, this principle can only help understand knowledge that is being transmitted through images, such as brand logos and advertising. This is seen in the pictures shown, in which simple black lines are able to create the outline of a zebra, and the circular shapes and colors also create the outline of a peacock, which this is a famous brand logo. The limitation of this theory is that it does not address the effects of incomplete knowledge on bigger aspects such as people, events, or places. The second perspective used to answer the knowledge question is schema theory. Piaget and Bartley are both psychologists who helped develop and further create the concept and term of schema theory. Schemas are used to organize knowledge, guide behavior, and make sense of our current experiences. What they do is that they help simplify reality and help set expectations about what things are more likely to occur. One effect that they do have is that they influence the way we interpret, organize, communicate, and remember information. In a new situation, information is integrated with already existing and stored information. This means that new information is processed in regards to schemas that already exist. The concept behind schema theory addresses the limitation with the concept of closure, since this deals with images, peoples, and events. The sharing of incomplete knowledge is processed and simplified based on an individual's past experiences. Since the new information is being processed based on the past, then an individual's perception is already fixed to another situation because the knowledge provided was not complete. The reason why this is damaging is because the perception of an individual is no longer relevant to the present. This perception is related to past experiences, and it can also influence behavior. Going back to the original situation, Gestalt's principle of closure applies specifically with visual information such as images, meaning that this concept cannot be correctly applied to the George Pell situation. However, schema theory can be applied. The judge wanted to avoid the sharing of incomplete information about the case. If incomplete information would have been shared, the public watching or reading the news would interpret and process information on prior schemas. The judge was targeting the threat that schemas could affect the future juror's opinion about the case. That is, even before the correct evidence was even presented. Without the whole information, the situation was going to be classified with certain schemas that are not 100% applicable to the situation when all the information or evidence is present. This theory, this perspective can also be applied to COVID-19. I remember that when the pandemic started, several establishments such as restaurants and stores only allowed people to enter with a face shield. At the time, it was said by everyone that these face shields could prevent the spread of COVID. However, it was later proved that these face shields don't offer the protection people thought. By having incomplete knowledge of the face shield, people perceived the shield as safe and developed a false sense of security when in reality they weren't really protected. Another situation which this can be applied is Amy Cooper. She is a white woman from the US, and one day when she was walking her dog, she got into an argument with Christian Cooper. Christian Cooper was watching birds in the park, and he argued that Amy's dog should be leashed because those were the park's rules. As they argued, Amy called the police, saying that Christian Cooper was threatening her life, even though this was not happening. Later on, Christian Cooper explained that the reason he wanted Amy's dog to be leashed was because they tend to scare birds that spend time on the ground. Given that woman's actions, the company she worked in, Franklin Templeton, decided to fire her. The woman's incomplete knowledge of the situation made her perceive the situation and the man as dangerous and act in an extremely racist way. The incomplete knowledge activated her schemas on how black individuals should act, damaging how she is publicly seen. The knowledge question addresses how the lack of information affects an individual's perspective of an event. When perspective is influenced, it also means that the reality of a situation or event is no longer accurate. that decisions that we make are based on knowledge. So if that is not accurate, then how can the actions or behaviors resulting from them be expected to be appropriate? Schema theory presents a perspective which helps understand uh, this on a deeper level than Gestalt, given that closure can only be applied on a visual level. The impact both individually and on society of this is that the actions resulting from that knowledge affect other people around us, and many times it's possible that these behaviors are prejudiced and unfair. The importance of answering the question is that it can prevent individuals from having incomplete perspectives and demonstrating a prejudiced or unfair behavior. I believe this can be related most importantly to the area of knowledge of ethics. That is not saying that it affects that its effects in other areas of knowledge is not present, but I believe that ethics is always present in every single situation to some extent.